Alright, you guys, so I want to show you real quick how to clean your data based on the instructions I have in phase 2 for the project. So the first piece of the instruction is that you're going to delete colleges that were not randomly selected. So I allowed you to choose some colleges that you were interested in that were not a part of your random selection. And in particular, I'm looking at in-state tuition data here as a sheet that I'm showing you as an example. And I have sorted my data over here. So I highlighted my whole column and I went to sort the data, right? Usually you can right click and choose sort and smallest to largest, right? And it'll sort the data for you. So once I've sorted the data, it's pretty obvious. You can see here the two colleges I chose. I had chose Harvard and Yale, and Harvard and Yale had data values that you can see are pretty, quite a bit larger, considerably larger than my other data values. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those two values. And remember, if you can see here, the mean and the standard deviation should automatically adjust for me when I delete those values. All right, so I'm going to hit delete and then delete, and my mean, right, because remember my mean was defined in a formula using average here, right, and so was my standard deviation. So those automatically update for me. Now the second part of the cleaning I want you to do focuses on the percent of data within 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations. Now right now this is a manual calculation, and it really shouldn't be. So let's remind ourselves how we wanted to do this for the first phase of the project. So first thing I'm going to do is build my lower and upper class limits real quick. So within 1 standard deviation, I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to click the mean, and I'm going to subtract 1 standard deviation, and when I hit enter, there's that lower limit. And then over here I'm going to hit equals and tap the mean and plus 1 standard deviation. So there's my lower and upper class limits, right? So what I'm going to do in this percentage cell here is I'm going to hit equals. So in the cell I've hit equals, and then I'm going to type frequency. I'm going to choose the frequency. Let me double click that, and then I want to look in this range here. So the frequency of, there's my 25 cells, even though the bottom 2 are blank. And then I do comma, and then I want the upper limit to be, it's going to count all the way up to that limit, right? And then what I want to do is I want to subtract out the frequency, and it's hiding everything from me here, so hang on just a sec. So I'm going to count the frequency of those cells, and then comma, I want my lower limit. My lower limit, it's being covered up. It was right here. It's K12 is where my lower limit was. So I'm going to come up here and type K12, and that's where my lower limit is, and hit enter. All right. Now this is being formatted as a frequency, so let me right click and let me format the cell, and I'm just going to change it to a number. All right. So here's 16 data values out of the what do I have, 23 that are left over. All right, so I'm going to continue this same process. So let me delete those guys, and let me format them and change them to numbers, just so I can get a raw count here. And then so let me do this cell will be the mean minus, I'm going to do 2 and hit the asterisk button, Shift 8. 2 times standard deviation. So here's the mean minus 2 standard deviations, and here's the mean equals. So I'm going to hit equals, tap the mean. I'm going to do plus 2 Shift 8 times the standard deviation. So there's the mean plus 2 standard deviations. Right. So again, I'm going to do basically the same thing here. Right. I'm going to have the frequency cell count up to this number, and then I'm going to subtract the frequency counting up to this number, right? So that will give me the data caught between these two values, okay? Let me do that again one more time. So I'm going to do frequency, let me double click. I'm going to look in this column, and then I want this as my upper limit. So it's going to count all data values from 0 up to that number. And then I'm going to subtract out frequency of this data set up to that lower limit. So that was K13. So it's being covered. I can't click it. I'm going to type K13. So I have 22. Right? So I have 22 data values lying between these two numbers, within 2 standard deviations. Right? So let's do this one more time. Let me do equals, and then I'm going to have mean minus 3, shift 8, standard deviation. So there's that lower limit, and then this will equal mean plus 3 times the standard deviation. Right? So then I should actually be able to just drag this cell down here and it'll copy everything for me. So let me just double check. So I click on this cell and let's look at what it's counting. It's counting from B3 to B27. So that's a mistake. It's starting here at B3 and going down to B27. So let me fix that. I want to go from B2 to B26. And then it's using L14 as its upper limit. So this is L14. So that looks good. All right. So I'm going to L14, and then this would be K14 right here, right? And that's the upper limit for my second frequency. But again, this shifted down one when I dragged. So let me just fix that real quick. B26. All right, and then there we go. All right, now, so in this case, I don't actually have any data points lying outside 3 standard deviations, right? So I have 23 data points sitting here, and then this cell is counting all 23 of them, okay? So just to illustrate something here, there's nothing for me to delete that's out of 3 standard deviations, but let's pretend for some reason that this might still be $18,000, let's say, all right? So I changed that to, that was 180,000. All right, well, let's go with that, right? So if I have a data value, notice that's not being counted here, right? Notice there's a data value. I have 23. This is only counting 22. So I would want to come back, and in between these ranges, I would want to find which data value is not falling in there. That would be this data value. I would delete it, and then we would see that now all 22 data values that are left over are being counted within 3 standard deviations. All right, so those are the 2 ways that you need to clean your data for mean. So just to review, you need to delete the 2 data values or whatever data values were not randomly selected, and then you need to delete the data values that are not within 3 standard deviations. So any data values that are more than 3 standard deviations from the mean, you need to delete from your data set. Once you have done that, then your most updated mean and standard deviation are what you are going to use for phase 2. So when we build confidence intervals or do hypothesis testing, we will now use this mean and this standard deviation for our clean data. As always, please let me know if you guys have any questions.